Hi guys, Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your Firebrand. So the vehicle itself is essentially a Swift lifestyle, but with its Firebrand sort of detailing. So under the bonnet, we've got on the left hand side your engine battery. So this is all engine battery related. Brake fluid attached to the servo just up there. Your power steering fluid is in this reservoir here at the front. Engine oil gets topped up through this cap just here, and your engine oil dipstick is the red topped one down here just in front of the engine there. Over on the right is your engine coolant, and you can see there the engine's cold at the moment, and so we've got the perfect level in that. So that's how you should check it when the engine's cold. Air filter sits inside this little casing just here, and your washer fluid sits just down in there. The chassis plate for the vehicle is just down here. So still sticking to the near side, if I press on the left hand side of that little cover there, it opens up the diesel filler point. There's not much to show you inside the passenger doors on these chassis, but I will get around on the inside when we get around the other way. You can see the step there is an electronic step which comes in and out from this little switch just here. So that's working really nicely. You've got the D-bar lock, so you pull this little button down and that will release the D-bar and allow you to use it either as a way in or across the door, stopping anyone from being able to get in, like an extra deterrent basically. These two vents just here next to the door are for the fridge. So if you have got the fridge lit up on gas, you can put your hand over the top right hand side and just feel if there's any hot air coming out of that. If there is hot air coming out of it, it means that your gas is definitely lit and working. You will also find a little bit of condensation will build up on there. That's completely normal. But again, I will show you how to, another way of working out whether it's working or not when we get on the inside. So all of your nice branding there. Not much to show you in this locker, just we got the original carpets are in here and a load of storage. Freshwater inlet point is this one just here at the back on the near side, and you've got the original cap for that. And the other thing I want to show you is that your wastewater drain off point is just down here. So if you just pull this towards you, wastewater draining off there. I'm going to turn that off as soon as we're inside. So that is that. So you've got your mounting points for a bike rack there if you did want to have one fitted. Reversing camera there, aiming down really nicely, so when you get in the cab you'll see that the picture finishes just here, literally just in front of the tow bar, so you can really reverse right up to stuff. The ladder is there as well. Tow bar obviously there with the tow ball at the end as well with the electrics. On the offside now, at the back just here we've got your two gas bottle gas locker. So the bottle that we got in at the moment is a 6 kilo propane bottle. It does look a little bit worse for wear, but actually they all look like that. It's just because they get replaced. The bottles get used over and over again, so they do tend to look a bit like that. All you need to know really is that you turn the bottle on by going anti-clockwise around to the left. That turns the bottle on, and clockwise around to the right will turn your bottle off. Now you need to turn the bottle off before you start driving, and you've got 5 years after the date, which will be written on this pigtail somewhere, but there's 5 years on that. So that is the gas locker. Just make sure that you switch the gas off before you start driving, like I said. So the hookup point, this one just here. You can see I've got the hookup plugged in at the moment. I've got that plugged in so I can show you a few extra bits working on the inside. But really the hookup is really helpful. If you have got access to a hookup cable, it's really useful to have that plugged in, because it basically just means that your your 12 volt, so your leisure battery and all that sort of stuff just gets charged up, and it also gives you the access to using anything that's mains operated. The fridge can be mains operated, all those bits and pieces. So I'll run you through all of that when we get inside. This vent just next door to that is the boiler vent, and you can see there I did just take that cover off. So if you wanted to try and light the boiler up, you need to make sure that this cover is off. The boiler won't do anything at all unless that's taken off, because it hasn't got any air flowing through it. The last bit I want to show you on the outside is this toilet cassette locker. So you can see there, toilet cassette. You've got a freshwater flush on this one. So the freshwater flush is coming from this pipe just here. If you didn't have a freshwater flush, you'd have another separate container or a U-bend container just up here above that. But you don't, so you've got the freshwater, which a lot of the time is easier because it means you haven't got to top up separate fluids. So you can take the cassette all the way out just by literally lifting up on the little yellow tab. All you need to know really is that you empty the cassette out from here. So you take this off and empty it out from there. When you're physically emptying it out, you should be holding down the little yellow button at the back there. And then once you've emptied it out, you can put your blue fluid in here, about a cap's worth in there, give it a little swish around, push it all the way back in like I've just done there. And that is all you need to do really. So, in the cab, I'll just take the keys out of my pocket. I know you asked I'm going to run you through the air suspension. So when I sold the vehicle, this particular vehicle came in part exchange against another one, and when I took it in, the customer made sure that he was purchasing another one with air ride, because his one had the air ride fitted and he couldn't live without it. So that's why this one's got it. You quite literally, it's very, very simple. All you need to do is just keep your eye on that level in there, basically. Stop it, don't let it go over about sort of 2 bar, but you essentially, like any sort of tyre, you've got the exact same valve on each tyre there. You can just undo these and put pressure in. It's really as simple as that. You don't need to do it, you haven't got to worry about it, you haven't got to kind of, keep your eye on it all the time, but just every once in a while, keep your eye on that. And if it needs topping up, just give it a little top up. You see at the moment there, it's sat exactly on 2 bar. So, as we speak at the moment, there's nothing to do with it. Just literally leave it alone. It just gives you a little bit of extra stability really on the road. Nothing nothing crazy, but there you go. I also realised that wasn't a very comprehensive description of that, but there's not really too much to them, to be honest with you. So, right. So, the reversing camera, you can see, sits in this nice little bit in the middle. It's actually a bit of a nice kind of line of vision just there, rather than being up there at the top. So that's why they put them in the middle sometimes. And like I said, the camera, when you get to see that, when you put it in reverse, or even when you just turn it on with the ignition, it gives you a really nice clear view down at the back. You've got a singled in Blaupunk head unit there, hazard warning lights, and your fog lamp. All of your heater controls are just down here. So you've got the fan speed setting, temperature, and where the actual air goes to. You've got the 5-speed manual gearbox. Reverse is lift up and over to the top left to get you into reverse. Your lights are on the left-hand stalk just here, as well as the indicators. And your washers and wipers are on the right. You have got the electric adjusting mirrors as well, which is on that little stalk just over there. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, not much else to go through. So I'm just going to jump out and... Right, I'll just show you around the inside. So like I said, we know the previous owner of this vehicle. They absolutely love this thing. And it sort of shows in how well it's being kept. So right, so straight away over the habitation door, you'll notice you've got your AC85 Sargent control panel. So it's a very, very standard control panel for Swift to use, and in fact lots of brands actually, but Swift are quite renowned for using these. So it's pretty simple stuff. All you've got really is on the left hand side, you've got an on and off dial really for the vehicle or leisure battery. So when you press down, that'll basically allow anything in the back end to work via the leisure battery. And the reason you want that down on leisure is because if I had all these lights on like I do now and it was up on vehicle battery, essentially what you're doing is drawing power from the engine battery. So after a little while, if you haven't got anything charging it up, you know, self-explanatory, you're going to drain the engine battery out and you won't be able to start the van up. So really, really important. If you're going to be using any battery at all, it needs to be down here on leisure. The next one is your awning light. So if I just show you that, really nice bright LED light there. I will also show you, if I leave this switched on, you can also come into this cupboard here and actually manually switch it off in the cupboard. So that's up to you how you want to do it, but if I was you, I would just leave that one there switched on, and then, like I said, you can just use the second switch in from the left to turn it off from up there, rather than going into the cupboard every time. But that's totally up to you. The next one is the water pump switch. Now, all the time the water pump switch is switched on, you have a little green light down here. So the little green light basically just means that the pump is on and sort of up to pressure and working. If you turn the pump switch on and you could hear the pump running constantly, you know, because you will hear it, you can, in all motorhomes, you can hear when the pump's running. If it was running all the time, it means that you've got some air in the system and you're not quite up to pressure. So in order to sort of get rid of that and stop the pump from running and turning itself off, turn the pump switch on and basically just come to the sink just here. Literally all you have to do is pull the cold water through, so we'll do that. So you can hear straight away the pump kicks in. So we've got really good pressure there. So I'm not worried about that, that's good. Over to the right, on your hot water, also really good pressure, no air coming out of the tap. And we can switch it off and you'll hear the pump will turn itself off. There you go. So that is exactly what you would expect from a decent van that's got good pressure and no leaks. If there was a leak and the water was sort of, you know, pouring out from some place in the vehicle, that pump would just carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on, would never turn off. The same goes for if you haven't got quite enough water in the fresh tank, that pump will also just carry on and carry on because it won't be able to get up to pressure. So it's just important to keep your eye on that. If you want to use the boiler as well, another really important point, if you want to use the boiler, you need to make sure that it's full of water. And the only way to do that is by doing exactly what I've just shown you there. So if the hot side of the tap there hasn't got any pressure or any water coming out of it, it means that your boiler's not full. And you should never ever use the boiler unless it's full of water. But that's that. So that's the fresh and hot water side of things. The next two are actually rocker switches. So these three here can actually be switched and they will stay where you switch them. But these ones are actually rocker switches. So whatever you do, they'll always go back. And the reason for that is they're actually just sort of buttons to let you know the battery voltage in this one and the water level in this one. So if I press and hold on the left one here, the battery one, and look at the top scale, right up there in the green, telling us that the battery is at full power. So that's really good. And the reason for that, by the way, is because we've got that hookup plugged in. If we didn't have the hookup plugged in, you might be looking at around the top of the yellow, maybe in the green, but probably just in the top of the yellow. So having that hookup cable plugged in really means that you get full power. And this battery charger just here, that's what that is there, that's basically just doing its job and working really, really well. So hook up in, charger works straight away and gives you really good voltage in your leisure battery, which means that you can leave these lights on for as long as you like and you won't go flat, basically. I will go around the rest of this stuff in the wardrobe in a minute, but I just thought I'd run you through that. And like I said, the next one along is the freshwater level. So if we have a look at that and look at the bottom scale, you've got half a tank of fresh water. So there you go. So these two lights here, they're a little bit kind of irrelevant, to be honest with you, because in my sort of, you know, a bit of advice to you, if you, the fresh and the waste tank should be pretty much the same size. So if before you go away, you empty out the waste tank completely, leave it to go completely empty, and then fill the fresh water up, or, you know, a lot of people will actually go to where they're going and then fill the fresh water up when they get there. But fill the fresh tank up regardless. And when you come to running out of your fresh water, the waste tank will be full, and then you can go ahead and empty that. So that's the way I would do it. You know, like I say, when you start running out your fresh water, you're pretty, you know, you can be pretty sure that your waste tank's going to be full. and you go and empty it. But these two lights here, the top one will come on basically when your when your waste tank is pretty well full, and the amber one is telling, well, should, I mean, the reason I say that, to be honest with you, is because these tend to be a little bit iffy with, you know, as and when they actually work. So I wouldn't take these as gospel. Like I said, the most efficient, the most kind of like accurate way of working it out is, like I said, because both the tanks are the same size, if you start running really low on your fresh water, you can know for a fact that your wastewater tank's going to be pretty well full up. So, you know, that's the way I would go about it, but they're there if you want to use them. So where it is at the moment, we've got the leisure battery working, awning light on, and the water pump on. We can then also use these buttons here to turn various lights on and off. So that's those ones there. You've also got lights underneath the cabinets here, which will come on manually. So you can go around and really make it your own, decide which lights you want on, which ones you don't. So that is all there for you. In the bathroom, get that out of the way. Not much to show you in here, really, to be honest with you. All you've got really is exactly the same kind of mixer tap there, hot and cold, left and right. Exactly the same for the shower as well, so that's up there in this point. You have got the shower curtain that comes across just there, and the light switch for this, the bathroom, is up there. I'll leave that on. The toilet is the only bit I really need to show you, to be honest. Again, super easy. All you need to do, press this blue button down, and that will pump around the flush fluid. When you want to drain out whatever's in the tank, in the actual bowl there, into the cassette, you just lift or pull this basically around to the right, and then you can see all of that goes in there. So you can now flush around, flush it through, and it'll go straight into the cassette, and then just pull this back, and that's closed up again. So that is literally the entire way to use the toilet. It's really, really simple. Okay, so that's the bathroom. The bathroom's normally a really, really quick little bit because it's not, you know, there's really nothing to them. Okay, so the first thing I'll show you is the fridge then. So at the moment, if I just open this up, get my legs out of the way. So at the moment, I've got the fridge lit up on gas. Now, I know that for a fact because, well, for a few reasons. It's down here on the gas symbol. I can have a look down the little peephole there and see a nice blue flame. And I can also put my hand over that vent on the top right hand side and feel physical hot air coming out. So there's 3 ways there that I can prove to myself that that's working and it's lit up on gas. So they're the ways that you work it out. The other 2 ways to light the fridge up and get it cold is either 12 volt, which is for when your engine's running only. So this won't do anything at all until you start the engine up, and that's only really to hold the temperature and keep the fridge cold whilst you're driving. Or mains, so 230 volt. So if I turn it over to 230, you'll notice that the flame has gone out, so there's no flame in that peephole anymore. And now we've got an electric element in the back of the fridge. The hookup is plugged in, so this will be working, and that's it. You just leave it alone, it'll get cold. Okay, so again, another little tip: if you're going to go away tomorrow morning on holiday, just for example, my advice would be to light the fridge up on gas or electric if you've got the hookup plugged in the night before you go away, and then by the time that you come to the van the next morning, all of your stuff inside the fridge and the fridge itself will be nice and cold, and then all you have to do is switch over to 12 volt when you start the engine up and drive off. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. But like I said, the only 2 ways to actually get the fridge cold by itself is the gas or the mains. So and to be fair, these fridges do take a good sort of 3-4 hours to get cold, generally speaking. So when you get to where you're going, you can then switch back over to one of the other 2, from 12 volt to either gas or the mains, and that's it. Just turn it all the way off by going up to the top, and that's all you have to do. To physically light it up on gas, you go all the way down to the bottom, like I said, and then on the right hand side here, you've got a piezo igniter. So the piezo igniter They are a little bit noisy, but if you go to a campsite, this is pretty much all you'll hear because they've all got the same, well, some of the newer ones have got electric ignition, but you will always hear that noise. Essentially, all you have to do is push this button in like that. That's what allows the gas to come through. And whilst you're doing that, press on the piezo igniter. So if you watch what happens down there when I do that, see straight away the flames come straight back on, and you should be able to see a nice blue flame. So I've now let go of that up there, and the gas is on. Okay, so like I said, once you finish with the gas, turn it off, no more flame. So that is the way to use one of these fridges. We do need to just replace this little catch up here because I've just noticed that's broken. Okay, so the cooker, it's a proper sort of range cooker, you might call it. So being a British built vehicle, they tend to have these hot plates on here, giving you the option to use the electric hob ring if you want to, as opposed to just the gas. So again, if you've got the hookup cable plugged in, which I do, you can basically just turn this first dial here, 1 all the way through to 6, and that'll just start heating up your hot ring there. So that's the electric hob. The rest of them here are all gas, and they have got their own little symbols. So bottom left, bottom right, and top right. So it's really simple. You got an ignition button just there. So the ignition does these 3 burners, the grill and the oven. So you literally just push in and round on whichever one you want to move, and they'll come on with the ignition. Exactly the same for the grill and the oven. So down here we've got a little switch, well, a little plug for the electric hob ring at the top. And in this little cupboard here we've got a few bits I want to show you. So these are your gas isolator taps. There will be a couple more dotted around somewhere, probably underneath the behind here somewhere. So these are gas isolators, like I said. You've got a little diagram telling you which ones do which. So you've got the green one does hob and the blue one does the fridge. So if you wanted to isolate the gas from either of those two things, you can literally just turn them 90 degrees like that, and that will isolate the gas. That's it. So for example, if you were on holiday and you thought there was a problem with an appliance, you can isolate it from there and then carry on with your holiday and not worry about it too much until you get back, is kind of the idea of it. So just behind me, we've got your heating system. So this is a Trumatic Ultra Heat, and it's the highest spec one they made. Well, actually, that's a lie, it's not. The highest spec one has got the electric ignition, but it's got the 240 volt element and the blown air fan. So that's the kind of, apart from the electric ignition, is the only thing it hasn't got. So if I turn that off for a sec, just so we can hear it. Really simple how to use it. Like I said, you can use it on the mains as well, but I'll show you how to light it up on gas first. So same again as the fridge. Noisy piezo igniter. It's just how they are. So all you have to do is turn this little dial around here to sort of 2 or 3, and then exactly the same as the fridge, push down on this whilst pressing on the piezo igniter. So if we do that, whilst we do it, have a little look down the peephole. You can see straight away there, nice blue flame comes on. So now all I'm going to do is leave this here just for a few seconds, because that's our pilot flame. Just leave it there to warm up for a sec, and then I'll lift it up and turn it around to sort of 7 or 8. All right, so I've lifted up, nothing's happened. When I twist it round to 7 or 8 now, watch what happens. The main flame kicked in, so you can see that I've lifted it up now around to about 8. The main flame's kicked in, and now we've got some proper heat coming out. So that is it. You just leave that alone now, and that'll get your heating working. Like I said, because it's a nice high spec heater, you've also got the blown air heating, which is these little circular vents that are dotted around. All you have to do to get that to work is push this little button here to the left, and you can hear there straight away. You can set your number between 1 and 5, but straight away you can hear there's a little fan just there at the back, a little circular bit you can see, and I can feel loads of air pumping out through there. It's actually, they're a really, really strong fan. So even, you know, further away from the heater, I mean, these heaters get fitted in, you know, vans twice this size, and they're still really, really good at getting the van nice and warm, nice and quickly. So yeah, already getting hot. I mean, that's been on what, like 1 minute, and it's, you know, it's already getting hot. So these are really, really quick at getting the van warm. The only other advice I'll give you on this is when you turn these off, so if I turn it off just by turning it all the way back round to 0, see, no more flame in there, so that's off. I would always advise you, if you've got this ability, if you've got the fan, leave the fan running for sort of 5 minutes or so once you've turned it off. If you turn this gas heater off and don't have the fan on, you'll be amazed how much heat comes out the top of these things. I mean, they're seriously, seriously hot. And quite a lot of the time, it's not so much, you know, they're built to get that hot, but the only problem with it is you'll find that if you do that, all the sort of Fablon and the bits and pieces on the bottom of these cupboards and anything around it, in fact, you can see, you know, it's barely anything at all, but it's just you can see what I'm saying there, where it starts to kind of bubble up and ripple. If you turn the gas off without this on all the time, I can guarantee you after, you know, a couple of years or so, all of this will be rippled out and bowing because it gets too hot. So yeah, just a little tip, make sure you leave this fan running for about 5 minutes or so once you've turned it off. But to be honest with you, I don't see why you wouldn't do that anyway, because it carries on pumping hot air out for a good 5-10 minutes anyway, even once you've turned them off. So you might as well use up the extra heat. So that is that. Okay, on the same subject of the heater, I'll show you how you use it on the electric. So in this cupboard here, we've got these two sort of cream switches. So the one on the left there says space heater on it. So if I turn that on, it will light up because I've got the hookup plugged in. So if I turn that one on, nothing at all is happening right now. All I've done by pressing that space heater switch on is turn the power on for this ultra heat switch. Okay, so ultra heat is the heating. So like I said, all I've done by turning the space heater switch on in the cupboard there is allow me to use this dial. So you can, if you want to, you can leave the space heater switch on at all times, because as soon as you plug the hook up in, it'll just basically mean that you can then come and use this. The one next door to it for the water heater, you need to make sure that you leave that switched off until you specifically want to use the water heating. All right, that's completely different, but I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. So once you've got that space heater switch on in the cupboard there and it's lit up, you can then come here and choose 500, 1000 or 2000, which is the amount of watts basically that are used at one time. So you've essentially got 3 elements that heat up. So you've got a 500, 1000 and a 2000, and instead of using it on the gas there like I showed you how to light it up a minute ago, you can literally just choose one of those numbers and it'll just basically heat up. All right, so you can do the same thing, use the fan, and it'll just basically start pumping out warm air. The only thing, again, a little tip really, you don't have to sort of listen to it, but if you don't use those space heaters on gas very often and you always use it on the electric, you will find that they'll start to get smelly, where they kind of, when you use it on the gas, it gets hot enough to burn off any kind of dust and stuff like that. Whereas when you use it on the electric, it doesn't really do that. So if you don't use it on gas for, you know, for a year or whatever, for example, and then you first light it up, you'll be amazed how smelly they get. So it's always a good idea to use it on gas as much as you can, but like I said, you have got the option there to use it on electric if you want to. So that's now in the off position. The dial to the right of it is the ultra store, which is your boiler. So the boiler itself sits under here. Let me just move that out of the way. The boiler itself sits under here. If I can just lift this up 1 second. A bit fiddly. Right. So, the boiler itself is this grey box here. Like I said, you've got a few more gas isolators just there. So, the boiler is really simple. Like I said, it's a Truma Ultra Store boiler. You don't really need to know anything about it specifically. I mean, they're really easy to work on. What do you call it? Sort of motherboard for the boiler sits inside this just here. But yeah, all you need to know really is that you've got this little yellow tab down here, which at the moment is in the closed position, which is where you want it to be. If you lifted that up so it was vertical rather than laying flat, all the water, the 10 litres of water that's inside this boiler currently, will drain out onto the floor. Now, the only reason you ever need to do that is if it's coming up to winter and you're not going to be using the vehicle. If you're not going to be using the vehicle in winter and you're worried that this water might freeze, you need to make sure that you drain that water out by lifting that up. If you imagine the boiler itself, like I said, is 10 litres, full to the top, you've got 10 litres of water in there. If that freezes, it's going to expand by however much, and basically these lids just pop off and all the pipes around here will freeze up as well, and you'll end up getting leaks in all sorts of places that you don't want. So make sure that you drain that water out if you're not going to be using it in winter. And like I was saying at the very beginning, once this boiler is empty, it will take a little while to fill back up. So when you pull the hot water side of the taps through, initially you'll get nothing until it's full up again, and then it'll just eventually start coming through. The water pump is this one just here. So you've got a little strainer on here. I will say as well, just for the future, I'm not saying this to worry you in any way, but these little strainers, now and I will say as well, they all have the strainers, it's not just this van, but these little strainers are prone to leaking. Pretty much any motorhome you ever go in, unless it's like brand new, you'll find that there'll be sort of watermarks around this this little strainer. So just bear it in mind, if you do ever get a leak or you can ever hear any water coming in from this area, I can pretty much guarantee you it will be from this. And it is literally just a case of unscrewing it off and putting a new one on. But just for the future, it might be years down the line, might never happen, I don't know. But just bear in mind, these are quite common to start leaking. So yeah, that's about it for around there. Right, anyway, yeah, how to actually use the boiler. Let's go on to that. Pop this back on in a minute. So if you want to use the boiler on the gas, which again is probably the more common way of using it, if you want to use it on the gas, quite literally all you have to do is turn the dial once around to the right. It will light straight up, and then you just set your temperature between 30 and 70. And then essentially all the water that's inside the boiler will heat up, and after about half an hour or so you'll have hot water. So that's how you use it on the gas. Like I said, you have to have the cowl cover off on the outside before you try and light it up. That's really important. But that is that. So I'll turn that off. So hot water on gas, heating on electric. And the other way to use the hot water on electric, if you want to heat the water up by the electric element, turn that right hand switch on there that says water heater on it, and essentially the element inside this water heater is now heating up via the electric hookup. So like I was saying, you need to make sure that you leave the water heater switch off if you don't want to use it. So I don't want to use it at the moment, so I'm going to turn it off. And you can, if you want to, you can leave the space heater switch on at all times so that you can use the ultra heat switch up there. But just for sort of good practice, I always just tend to turn them off anyway. So you've got some fuses just here. This is your sort of main fuse board there, and your electric trip switches are under there as well. So yeah, it's typical kind of Swift layout. The only other bits that I need, I will put this back together in a minute, but the only other bits there are really on this is you got your Teleco, so you got the TV satellite dish on the roof. So the Teleco box is just there. There is an actual system just here. So quite literally all you have to do is turn it on the little red button there, and then just put it up and down via these two. It will select Astra 2 for you automatically, and you know it can't be any easier than that. You just literally press on and off basically. But that's the sort of power box for it up there. And your TV aerial booster is this switch just here. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of extras on here. You've got the solar panel as well, which is wired up to the leisure battery, so that's all on there and working. And that's it really. Apart from kind of going through, making it your own, deciding which lights you like and don't like, it's all, you know, a very, very good condition vehicle. It's been looked after. We've done a full habitation check on it to make sure everything's working as it should. But yeah, so if there's anything else you think I've missed out or anything you'd like going through again, just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.